Hey everybody, welcome to the Fire It Up with CJ show. Today we have Paul White here again, and we're talking about 5 languages of appreciation in the workplace. Hold up your beautiful book.
All right, yeah.
Yeah,
New version. Yeah,
yeah. So
it first came out in 2011, and then we sold 300,000 copies, and have updated it. New research on a lot of different things, and so that.
excuse me.
Oops, bless you. Came
Yeah.
out in January, and doing well. It was rated the number one new HR release by Amazon in January. So
Nice. That's
yeah,
congratulations. That's
thanks.
exciting.
Yeah.
And I know that if people are interested in finding out more, there's an assessment online. So tell me what that assessment is and how people take it and what they get from it.
Yeah, actually, in the back of the book, right inside the back cover, there's a code
Uh-huh.
at the bottom, and people can go there. It's called the Motivating by Appreciation Inventory.
Hmm.
Takes about 10 or 15 minutes, and it identifies a person's primary way they like to be shown appreciation, their secondary language, we call it, their least valued language, which is sort of your blind spot, the one that's not important to you but maybe to others, and then also specific actions within your primary language, because what we found is that knowing the language, let's say quality time, isn't sufficient to really hit the mark, because some people like individual time with their supervisors, others like, hang out with their friends. So,
Hmm.
but they can go to our website, appreciationatwork.com, and it's the word at, but appreciationatwork.com, and either buy the book or you can buy codes for your team as well if they don't want to read the book.
Okay, so that's something that I would either do as an individual. So tell me the two scenarios. If I'm an individual, I would go and take that test. And let's say I'm not sure what mine would be, but I'm pretty sure it would be words of praise or affirmation,
Right?
and then quality time. I don't care about quality time with my boss. I care about it with my spouse. Like
Right.
if I were to do
So
the
that's
ones with my
personal.
spouse, yeah,
Yeah, that's the love languages personally.
yeah,
But maybe quality time with your colleagues, or it could be acts of service, people helping you get stuff done when you're pressed, or a little something to just encourage you. Could be your favorite cup of coffee or something like that, a magazine they know you'd like, or for some people, not many, but it could be a high five or fist bump, something
yeah,
like that.
yeah. So I don't care about the high five. That would be my like don't care at all.
Right.
Next to that are gifts, and spending time with people at work. I like doing so.
Okay.
Quality time with my other peers would be
Right.
nice. Or and then and quality time with my boss. So like my I remember my my husband would try to get one-on-ones with his boss,
Mm.
and whenever he needed to have an issue talked about, he would say, "Let's go get coffee."
Ah.
Lindsay, let's go get coffee. And that was the only time he could get one on one time with his
Okay.
boss. Sad. But that was his only one on one with his boss was to do that. So
So
I
the
would
way
say
that
I need
the way that
quality time then, I guess.
Okay. So the way to use this really, I mean, you can take the inventory for yourself, but really it's designed to take with your team so
Hmm.
that people know how to show appreciation and encouragement to one another. One of the key things that we've learned over time is, top down sort of from your supervisor is okay, but more and more, especially with younger employees, it's more about collegial relationships, and also it sort of disseminates the responsibility away from just the manager, so that everybody takes responsibility to encourage one another, and, and,
Yes.
and it goes well that way.
Well, I have two things. One is I want to share with you an experience that I had talking about your work at with a workshop that I did, and then and what's interesting is you were referencing the research that you did with millennials
Right.
and how that's important to have. Tell me what the key finding was. I can't remember the exact wording, so I don't want to mess it up.
Well, yeah, just that, for them, quality time is relatively more important. Words are still important, but quality time. But for example, sort of if you do your team and you're the manager and these people have quality time, doesn't mean they want time with you. It means that they may want to hang out with one another, and so you got to get specific on that.
Right. But that was something that you found about quality time as being so the top one was quality time for millennials, but is that overall like what are again the can
Yeah.
you
So
refresh my memory?
actually, because I got two different research studies that we could talk about. One is the millennials, and so let me get the numbers. So quality time is important, but still words is the top for them. It's just
Yeah.
that time moved up and acts of service is less. So it's sort of shifted from acts of service for the general population. Those two are sort of about tied for second and third
Okay,
after
so
words.
words are number one, and then
Yep.
acts of service and
But time moved
quality
up.
time used to be second and third, but now for millennials, it's like
It's yeah,
clear
it's almost
second.
yeah, it's almost even with words.
Wow. Oh no,
Yeah.
that's huge. So,
Yeah.
how many people have done the original survey where you're just saying the general population without the millennial slice?
Well, overall, we've had 180,000 people take it.
Wow.
So, and I think we broke out about 90,000 in groups here. So,
Wow. Okay, so let's say that I am an individual. I would go to my boss and say what after I take this assessment.
well, yeah, the easiest way to do it, it's like, yeah, you should, hey, dude, you need to learn how to show me appreciation. No, in fact, I had a young worker say, how do I tell them what to do? I said, probably the better way to do it is say, I found this cool resource I think could be helpful for us as a team to take to find out how to encourage one another so that it's not just about you, right?
Ah,
So,
okay. So then you
yeah,
would meet as a team,
right.
and maybe during a team meeting, say what were everyone's acts of service. And so, is that how you would do it, or how would you imagine it would show?
It can. I mean, we've developed a training kit, an implementation kit with videos and PowerPoint
Oh,
that
wow.
lots of times an HR team member or trainer goes through, and then they take it throughout the organization.
Oh, cool.
Uh, yeah, and it's we got, I don't know, 375 trainers across the world in 26 countries that have gone through that.
Oh, wow.
Lots of
Okay.
times they're internal, especially with larger organizations. Or you could have people take the inventory on our website, theappreciationatwork.com. We've got free stuff where you can create a chart for everybody on the team to see, as well as their action items, and even a little cubicle poster where you can put your languages and actions. And it's not so much about you should do this for me, like, words, go ahead, tell me how great I am. But it's more just a reminder, hey, it'd probably be good to be mindful of being positive and encouraging and communicate something occasionally at least. So,
Okay, so I had a work group, and I said, this was a group about, I can't even remember what it was, but it was about trying to connect as a group more fully. And then so I had a personality assessment that I administered. And one of the key differences with this personality assessment was that was the extroversion introversion,
right.
and it wasn't Myers-Briggs but a different one. And extroversion is in this model defined as being liked. And so what was interesting is I said, well, one of the things that this model would show, this predictive index, is that the model that I was training this group on,
Mm-hmm.
is that certain people don't like, overt, like, hey, we want to congratulate Paul for the,
Come on
yeah,
down,
come
Paul.
on down.
Yeah.
So I said, everyone has a different sense of how they like to be appreciated. So I wanted to talk a little bit as a team, what kinds of things you like. And it was shocking because it was all over the place. One person said, I just like fist bumps. Like at the end, like I just want a high five at the end to go like, yes, we got that high five. Like that means something to me. And it's like, oh, okay. Like
Yeah.
who would have known? And then they had implemented the HR group in this HR group had implemented this thing where if someone did kind of a heroic act, they had these little figurines. Have you seen these around?
Yeah.
What are
So
they
go ahead.
called?
I don't know. There's different
Okay,
kinds.
they're like little superheroes.
Right.
And depending on, and it's kind of like a Pokemon thing, but it's a little plastic figurine
Mm-hmm.
where you would have it shipped. So let's say, Paul, thank you so much. We had that huge order. I know it came last minute, and I wanted to send you like this,
Right.
this figurine that it's like a plastic kind
It's
of
like
like
a Superman kind of,
yeah.
or a superhero, right?
Yeah, like a superhero. So it'd be like
Right.
Superman. I'd send you're a hero to me, and I'd send
Right.
it over to you. And so people were getting these like little plastic. They look like rubber duckies, like that kind of thing. But it would be like
Okay.
no, it didn't look like, but it's like that kind of plastic.
Got it.
And there were some people were like, I hate those things.
Right.
They're just so stupid. I don't, what am I
Right.
supposed to do with it?
Right.
Just send me a quick email that says, thanks so much. I appreciated it. You don't have
Exactly.
to, you don't have to send me this thing. It embarrasses me.
Right.
And then they do snaps. So they send an
Okay.
email to everyone going, snaps. I want everyone to know that Paul did a great job on this thing. And they're like, oh my God, that's I
Oh
hate
my
that.
God.
Just send me a quiet, discreet
Yeah.
mail saying thank you. So have you gotten a sense, in terms
Yeah. I
of
mean, you're right
tactical
on the target. I mean, the
executions?
deal is this: is that when we try to sort of, I'm gonna say mechanize it. That's not exactly, but I mean,
No, it's a formal
it's so
process. It's a
yeah,
mechanized
yeah.
process that they use.
It's so you can scale it up, right?
Yeah,
The problem is you lose the individual touch, and that's what people want.
right.
And so, I mean, yeah, whether it's a fist bump or even some people don't like words. I had one leader say, I grew up in a culture that if I got praised, the next thing was coming was an ask.
Oh,
And so, so it's like, hey, dude, you're looking good. You have an extra 20 you can share with me. And he said,
right.
he just has a wall goes up, and when he gets praised, what they want from me.
Yeah, it's
So it can be
yeah,
words. So you have to figure it out. And to be honest, I mean, I'm asked a lot, and I just wrote an article on this, but, how do you find out what somebody else wants? Well, you can try to ask them, but it's sort of a weird thing. Like, if I
yeah,
want to show you appreciation, how do I do that? It's just sort of weird in our culture.
yeah,
Secondly, you're not going to get much, right? It's going to, I don't know, tell me thanks.
yeah.
And so there's not much of a discussion or a broad repertoire about that. Secondly, if you try to observe them and see what they do, you don't have any data points, right? I mean, how often do you see somebody show appreciation to somebody else that you can gather that up? And our research shows that only about 75% of the time, which is decent, but it's 25% off, do people show appreciation in the way that they want to be shown appreciation, especially
Mm-hmm.
for gift givers. Gift givers are a unique breed of people, I
Yeah.
think. They like to give gifts, but then often don't like to receive them. And
Yes.
so the
I'm one of
only way,
those.
okay, well, the only way that I figured out is, that we have this inventory, and it takes 10 minutes, but you get it, and you get real specific because those
Oh.
actions, not only what kind of time or if it's gifts, what kind of gifts, but also from whom. Like, because you may want to hang out with your friends, your colleagues to watch sports, but you're not going to invite your supervisor. So you can sort of parse
Ah,
that
so
out.
you literally have a checklist where if you want to know, here's
Yeah.
specific. So in part of your package that you have for these 300 and whatever people who are trained, you
Yeah.
actually have a survey so that people can specifically
Well,
say what they
yeah,
want.
and that's actually, the inventory itself because it identifies their primary language, and then in that language it goes into the specific actions because otherwise you can still miss the mark.
Interesting. Okay, so that would be something, once I bought your book, took the code, I would be able to get very specifically what would be
Right.
best
And
for.
the real, I mean, in addition to hitting a mark, it saves you a whole bunch of time and energy, right? Because you're not writing the emails to everybody, some of whom don't want it. You're not stopping by and seeing people that don't want you to see them, you know. So it helps you become really efficient of doing what people want versus torquing them off. So
Okay, so you're at ExxonMobil, Capital One, Chick-fil-A, National Insurance, John Deere, NASA. I can't imagine a variety of companies that aren't at all alike at all. Like what? Like
right.
what?
Well,
So
add hospitals, Ben and Jerry's, long-term care facilities, public schools, government agencies. Yeah, we're all, the military.
okay.
So,
So do you
so
do you
we
notice
created
different
it.
types of things like for different I mean those are completely different types of companies.
Yeah.
So
So what we had to do is we didn't have to, but we chose to, is we created different versions for different industries. So we have a version for medical settings, public schools, government
oh, I thought you
agencies.
meant literally just medical settings. I'm like, well, that's really small. Okay, so you have medical. Sorry, that just threw me for a loop. Medical, public, like school systems. What are the other
Right?
ones?
Military, government agencies, nonprofits. Because, for example, an active service in a school might be one teacher watching another teacher's students over recess so she could, make phone calls or do paperwork. In a hospital, it may be, covering another nurse's patient light so they can get caught up on charting.
Right.
In the office, it's often sort of like cover my call so I can stay focused on this project. So we want to help make it specific and relevant to the different work
Oh,
sets.
you mean so like if I took, let's say that I worked at Capital One, you would actually have a financial sector inventory list that would be very specific to capital financial companies.
We don't have that yet. It
Okay.
sort of has to be different. So let me just give an example of one that sort
Yeah.
of crosses, and that is remote employees. We did
Right.
research with that because how do you show appreciation, acts of service or quality time if they work in another state or
Hmm.
country, whatever. And so we have a version specifically for that as well.
Okay, so I want to talk about remote employees because that's kind of a big new thing. So I don't even know the statistics right now because everyone seems to be. I just visited some friends at Amazon and I was like, how often do you have to come to the office? They're like, never. And I
Right,
thought, what? Like everyone's a remote employee because they're
right.
working at home. So what is the definition of a remote employee?
Well, it differs according to who's, sort of signing it, but it's that they're at least working 1 day a week off site.
Okay.
And that has increased by 50% in the last 10 years. So
Wow.
it's huge, and I don't have more recent data than that. But what's interesting is 80 plus percent of people in the U.S. say they'd like to work remotely, at least some. So I think, and there was a study by, I don't know, the U.S. Department of Labor that said at least 50% of jobs have some aspects that could be done remotely.
Yeah.
So I think obviously with the advocacy and advent of uh, technology, that helps facilitate it, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, no,
uh,
I know people who literally live in a different state during the weekends and come 3 days a week to Seattle. So they live in Arizona, and
mhm.
it's cheaper to live in Arizona because
Well,
Seattle is so expensive. It's actually cheaper
right,
for them to live in Arizona and fly to
yeah,
Seattle to go to their workplace for like 2 or 3 days where they have to show their face and work with their employees, do
right,
one-on-ones, which is crazy to me, but that's kind of how it's working.
right.
And so,
Well,
did
it also, I mean, from the employer side, it broadens your job market for employees
yeah,
so that somebody doesn't have to live where you are to be able to capture their skill set and be able to use them as part of your team.
yeah, yeah, yes, absolutely. And so, I'm curious. Did it say how many days per week on average? I know you defined it as 1 day a week.
Oh, yeah.
How many days are people generally working remotely?
I don't know. I mean, in the sense that more and more are working 1 to 2
Hmm.
full time. I don't know. It's growing, but I don't have the stats. But clearly, about half of the workforce are doing some once a week,
Okay,
which is
so
that's a
this
lot.
is really a lot. So I had a friend who managed the headquarters of his company. He's in Salesforce, so the headquarters of his company is in San Francisco. They also have a Seattle office, but it's a really long commute to get to that Seattle office. Or actually, it's Bellevue, so it's like a 40-minute drive back and forth
Yeah.
every day. So he has a Seattle office, and then he has a Bellevue like corporate office, and
Right.
then the actual headquarter office is in San Francisco.
Right.
He works with eight, I think maybe now probably 10 different people on his team, some of which are in Seattle, some of which are in the Midwest, some of which are in a different country, some of
Right.
which are, and they all work at home or rent offices and all this such. And they work with doing stuff where it's like a sales organization. So it's that they're going to need to work with the regional people in their area. So there's a reason why they're located regionally so that they can represent, the East
Got it.
Coast, the West Coast. And I'm sure this happens all the times with sales
Hmm.
groups.
Yeah.
So
Especially.
so when you have that, and I also have a dear friend who is running a corporation that is headquartered in New York, has something in Salt Lake City. So there's this kind of like there's a headquarters, there's like another subsidiary of which that's located one thing, and she has to report to the people in New York, but yet she has all these direct reports in Salt
Right.
Lake City. So there's this kind of all these scenarios. What do you see are the common problems that people are having, and what did your research share with you?
Yeah. So let me differentiate between remote employees and virtual teams,
Ah,
because
okay.
those two things are, from our perspective, pretty different.
Okay,
Okay,
got it.
so remote employees, what we did is we had people who, either supervise somebody who works remotely or they work remotely themselves, take the inventory and tell us about how appreciation in that kind of relationship, as opposed to people who work in face-to-face settings. Okay.
Okay, got it.
And so I'm looking for the numbers here. I was a hard time finding how. Again, it was about 89,000 people that, so it's not
Wow,
a
that's a
small
lot.
number. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, again, giving the big picture, for face-to-face employees, words of affirmation is their primary way that they like to be shown appreciation, about 48% of the time. So
Right.
almost half. Okay.
Right.
Um, Quality time is next for them. It's about 25%. Acts of service is 22. Tangible gifts is 6%,
Mm-hmm.
and physical touch is 1. All
Mm-hmm.
right. So we've got sort of that scenario. Well, for uh, remote or long distance employees, it shifted from words to time. Acts of service stayed about the same, gifts stayed about the same, but we had a 10 percentage point shift of the population from words to time. Okay,
Right. Yeah, because they
so
don't
they
have enough
want,
face time.
yeah, they didn't have enough face time. So globally speaking, that was, a trend. But then in following up with them and saying, okay, what does this mean, look like practically? A couple of things we found out. One is that they really value video time, okay, as opposed to just talking on the phone or, emails and chatting. Uh, you know, Hello, I'm a psychologist. We discover the obvious. So, you know,
Did you
uh,
really need a study for it? Did you really need a percentage number,
yeah,
Paul?
yeah. It's sort of like, we found out that before people go look for work, they think about going looking for work. I mean, hello. I mean, the federal government. I mean, well, so anyway,
That's my,
sometimes
my
it's
my son said he was this is just a little side, but it's funny. He's was figuring out his major in college, and he said I wanted to learn sociology, and so he went and they found stuff like, guess what, students aren't motivated if there's no like some type of like grading or something, and he's like, really? Do we really need to do this longitudinal survey?
yeah,
He's like, I think I couldn't give you percentage, but I could say more than 50%.
yeah.
So he's like, anyways, so he decided
Somebody
to be a computer science major.
very
Um,
good for that.
okay, so
So
tell me what you found.
so the facial thing. So that's important. Like, I have a remote team member, and so when we have team meetings, we at least start off the time, with a video chat, and be able to see people and chat and all that. Sometimes it's tough as you move on, but one of the nice things is technology is improving all the time,
Yes.
with all different kinds of ways to have multiple people, even from multiple sites.
Yes.
So that's good stuff. But I think the more important one, which is, it was sort of a soft finding from the interviews, was that what you have to do, or think about in a face-to-face setting, quality time can be, you walk by somebody's office and you stop by and check in and say how
Yeah, how
they're
you
doing.
doing? How's your weekend? Yeah.
Yeah. Or you see them in the break room, or you see them coming in from the parking lot or whatever. That doesn't happen in remote relationships, right? They're not walking by your office. And so what happens is the interactions become very task oriented, work oriented.
Yeah.
And so it becomes just about business, just about getting stuff done. And so what happens then is the remote employee just starts to feel sort of like a work unit, right? A production unit.
Oh, right. So
Not
it's like, CJ, let's set up a meeting to talk about that project about blah, 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 blah. So
right.
it's like, okay, all you're doing is setting up meetings just to like do that. But it could, okay, go ahead. I think I have a
So
solution, but that's obvious.
that's why I thought of it.
I
And
think
then
the solution is talk a little bit in the beginning about how
there,
are you doing. Am I
that's,
right?
that's part of it. There you go.
Okay.
So, but either at the beginning, or set up even, 10 or 15 minutes to get online before, or stay on afterwards. Or the theme is in remote relationships, you have to be more intentional and proactive about getting that kind of interaction because it doesn't happen just sort of by serendipity,
Yes.
and that it's okay and good to set up and talk about the Warriors, and how they're doing, or how the weekend was, because otherwise it really gets narrowed, and you don't get to know what's going on. You lose track, and if something else is going on in their life, health issues or for a family member or whatever, you don't know because it never comes up. They're not going to bring it up in the middle of
Right.
a conference call, right?
Right.
So it's and what was interesting actually before all that, well, after we found out the frequencies, we then said, well, can you communicate appreciation over long distance? 98% said yeah, and they said it does happen. So that's good.
Yeah.
It just takes a little bit more forethought, and so, like I said, we developed a long distance version of the inventory that has action items that fit being able to do that. So, like, you know, instead of taking somebody out to lunch, you might find out what their favorite snack place is or coffee shop and get them a gift card from that and send it to them, and so that instead for you're paying for it in person, you're doing a long distance and that kind of thing. So
Yeah, you can
it,
take
it,
a
it
virtual lunch. Sometimes I call my girlfriend, I'm like, virtual lunch, and like we both eat lunch, so we know that we'll hear chopping sounds. Or virtual walk, like I'll walk and they'll walk, but we'll be walking together, but really apart. So, I
yeah,
mean, there's lots of different things that you can do.
I do think the other part of it that feedback I got from the remote employees is that it really is helpful. I know it's an expense, but to bring them in every once in a while, especially if there's a big, company event or whatever, because just having at least occasional personal interaction makes it work, and that's different. That's the difference between virtual teams and relationships, and uh, I'm not an expert in that, but we've done some work. We were hired by a big international firm to help an international virtual team learn how to show appreciation to one another, and it didn't go well. I'm just telling you straight up. I'm honest. It's just part of it was their issue. Part of it was,
Because they're
I think,
cultural things too.
well, yeah, there's not, yeah, cultural things, but also, I mean, I've come to this conclusion. It both applies here and another setting we can talk about, which has to do with customers and clients. But I believe I'm willing to learn differently. But at this point, I believe to be able to show appreciation for a person, you have to have a personal relationship.
Mm,
Uh, and so you have to know them, as opposed to my sense of most virtual teams is they have functional relationships
right.
of getting tasks done, but they're not hanging out. Obviously, they don't
Yeah, you
often.
don't know me. Like I'm the guy who like gets your sales for the year in France, but like you don't know anything about me, right? So like now I'm on a phone call and I'm supposed to show you appreciation. Is that right?
Yeah, and that's where we differentiate with recognition, which can be for performance, and you can recognize and say, "Hey,
Yeah.
man, this person really, they nailed their goals and went past, and that's fine." But to show appreciation for them as a person and who they are, it doesn't work. And people either it feels weird, or they feel manipulated, or you're so far off the mark, it's just stupid.
Yeah, they're
I
like
mean,
they don't even know me.
yeah, yeah. Send me one of those hero things so I can, melt it. I mean, it's like, anyway, sorry.
So you've what you found was in this international case is that you were trying to like do this big conference call and show appreciation, but because they hadn't spent the time in the meeting before or after to get to know the person, it kind of just fell flat.
Well,
Is
they
that what
didn't even know each other. I mean,
Oh
they just,
gosh. Oh.
they know each other, and they're rotating teams like every 3 or 4 months. They're on a different project.
Uh,
I'm like, come on, I don't think this is going to work. They wanted to try. We tried. At least the way we structured it didn't work.
yeah.
Uh, the cross-cultural stuff is a challenge. If people can have a bit of a sense of humor about it, you can get through it. But if you're going to be super serious about it, I mean, everybody's going to screw up some, right?
Yeah.
Because Scandinavians are just. There's a saying in Northern Europe, I'm told, that both from like Denmark and Germany. And the saying is, not being yelled at is praise enough. So, so how would you like to
I'm
grow
kind of
in that?
surprised actually, because Denmark, everyone's so chill or like
Yeah,
smoking
yeah,
pot. It seems like they're all chill, so that's kind of shocking to me.
yeah.
Um, okay, so I want to go touch upon a couple different things. I want to go back and ask you about the sales thing, but I want to ask a couple other things that I don't know if this would apply because you said it's not about remote teams. But there's idea like if you have more than one employee, right, that is working remotely, let's say that you have a home-based team of five and you have two people that are working internationally, let's say, or
Right,
wherever, someplace different.
right.
And so those five people in your office are bonded, and you have these like two other people. So
Hmm.
there's one thing that you're talking about. It's like one-on-one connection with your boss and making time for your boss. How does that work when like the five people in the U.S. meet the two international people? How do you realistically do that? Like, do you spend, you know, 14
Well,
minutes in the
so
meeting talking to all seven people? What do you do?
I mean, what you're describing really is the challenge of relationships among groups of
Yeah.
people, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's a family, an extended family, a larger work group, because moving from two people one on one to one on two, you've now multiplied and it starts to really grow, and the permutations are huge.
Yeah.
And so, one of the things you have to do is focus on some one-on-one relationship, because if you have just a very minimal superficial with everybody, that tends to not create much of a bond, right? It's better to have sort of a stronger bond with one person and less with others, and then they have maybe with another person, and so it works together that
Yeah,
way.
like a cocktail party. It's
Yeah,
like, oh, do you know Joe? Joe, blah, blah, blah.
right.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and so you have to figure, and for leaders and supervisors, you have to sort of figure out, who do I invest in, right? Time and energy. And, typically it's good. You want to keep your top performers, right?
But don't you want all
Uh,
set, like, so you're a manager of these seven people. Don't you want to have that kind of 5 minutes before or after with all seven?
well, if really, theoretically, yes, but realistically, is that going to happen
Right,
regularly? Probably not.
right.
So, I mean, this sort of transfers to the issue of how do you show appreciation to large groups, or large teams. You
Yeah,
can't do it to everybody.
right.
So part of it is sort of getting a co-team member on board, that they're relating to these three or four people. You're focusing on these or three or four, and you try to catch the others.
Okay, got it.
So,
Wow.
and so, and I tell people, you have to sort of prioritize. I mean, you don't want to lose your top performers, your key team players. Often they don't need a lot because they're getting stroked a lot from the recognition of achievement.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so they're doing that, but they can resent if they never hear anything at the personal level. They can resent that they're just being, they're just, a producer, and
I've seen that with the people who I've coached that are producers, and they're like, they never talk to me. They just want me for my numbers, and then it's
right,
like, whatever. Yeah.
exactly, yeah. So you have to be careful about that, but typically the same top 10 or 15% get the achievement award stuff. Okay, you got low performers, we'll deal with them. You got this big middle group of good people, solid people, working decently, trying hard. They may not be your most skilled, but they're there. You don't want to lose them, because
Mm,
if they don't get the recognition for performance, right? So they don't hear anything. And we
mm,
know that once research said 79% of people who leave voluntarily cite a lack of appreciation as the main reason they're leaving.
mm-hmm.
Most managers, especially in certain industries, think people leave for more money, and that's true for a very high group. But most people don't leave for more money, because leaving a job takes emotional energy, right?
Right.
It takes an emotional driver to get them out of there, because it's like you got to disengage, you got to fund,
Mm-hmm.
you got to reengage. It's like, I don't want to go through that. So they'll stick as long as they feel connected and valued, and that's sort of the stickiness, right?
Yeah.
So you want to pay attention to your big solid middle group. sports analogy, it's sort of like football. You have quarterbacks and running backs and all, but you got blockers and tacklers. You can have stars, but if nobody blocks or tackles,
Right,
you're
they're not going to be
losing.
able to throw the ball and score
Yeah,
a touchdown.
yeah.
Yes, got it.
So, you know, or it's sort of like baking a cake. If you just use spices and icing without any flour, you don't have much
Right.
substance there. It may taste good for a second, but it's not lasting long. So,
Yeah, interesting.
so that's where you really have to, I think, focus on the middle group. And again, sometimes it's people that are discouraged because appreciation and encouragement are pretty much interrelated, or people that you want to help step up to sort of that secondary leadership level to
Right,
help you out. You don't want to try to do it by yourself to everybody because you can't, and you're
right,
going to get worn out and discouraged, and people are going to be unhappy. So you
right.
want to teach and train the people on your team how to show appreciation to one another.
Ah, I see. Okay, got it. So, and then let's say you have a team of 20, you're a salesperson, you have a regional manager, but then like, you want to take your top performers and like the next third and work with them. Then you would kind of find like some rotational thing to kind of get and connect with them.
Because once you get the relationship there, it's easier to keep it
Yeah.
going, right?
Yeah.
It's sort of like spinning a plate, but
Yeah.
you have to come back every once in a while.
Right. You're like, oh, how's your mom doing? I know we talked about, you have kind of a memory,
Yeah.
working memory with the person. Okay. So the other thing that, here's the challenges that I've seen that I don't know if what you see as best practices. So there's the water cooler, which is sort of what we're talking about. It's kind of like not talking about anything, but the group is kind of like, what's going on? Who did I talked about? Blah, blah, blah. And so I've seen some internet-based teams that have groups, remote teams, I guess. What did you call them? Like teams where their people are
Virtual
all
teams?
virtual teams, where they have virtual water coolers, where that's a virtual water cooler where they just go in. And I thought, really? I would never go in there. So I don't.
It sounds like some verbal techno geeks idea that, I mean, there might be a few of them, but, you know, I, it,
What do you do though? Like I get the need. The need is the virtual water. Like a lot of business is conducted when you're getting water. You're coming from the bathroom. You're just running into someone. Like a lot of stuff happens in that particular way. So I don't really know. Have you seen? The only thing I've seen is the virtual water cooler, of which I thought that's strange. But
yeah.
people go there a lot.
Well, you know, again, I think, I don't know, I would not say I'm an expert in that area, but I would say this, that people need unstructured opportunities to interact in trusting relationships.
Mm,
If it's all structured, then there's none of the informal. I mean, that's why,
yeah.
historically people would go play golf or, fish or run together, whatever, take a walk, and because it's unstructured and there's some, fluidity of it.
Right.
But if you don't trust the person, you're not going to talk to them, right?
Right.
And so one of the things I encourage people just is to build trust. It takes, sense of vulnerability, and so it's that you share first about yourself.
Hmm.
Some, I think, sales tactics, they sort of get you to ask people about their personal. It's like,
Hmm.
why do you want to know about my wife and kids, kind of thing, if I don't
Right.
know anything about you, right?
Right.
And so I think that's why. I mean, there are boundary issues you got to be aware of, right?
Right.
But sharing, I share when I go and speak and train that I like to fish, and I show us, but it ties into the story.
That's so vulnerable of you.
Hey, here's what's vulnerable. I live in Kansas. Now that's very vulnerable.
That is vulnerable.
You
And
know,
I like to fish. Then I'm also like, what? Where do you go fishing in Kansas? Are there
yeah,
places that fish in
yeah,
Kansas?
yeah,
There are.
like,
Okay.
but it's sort
Okay.
of like,
Yeah,
oh
so
well,
someone has to open the kimono a little bit to be like, okay, like I'm gonna like what do you think of this? I'm a little bit confused about something, and then like start a dialogue where you develop the unstructured kind of trust so that
and
you
it could
can.
be. I mean, it can be about, a shared interest, whether it's sports, the Warriors, or whomever, and so that's how we sort of start, and we go from there.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. It's like online dating, but for work. right? Because like you said, there's unstructured and structured time. So in terms of structured, I've seen two things, and I wanted to get your sense of best practices for that. So, a time, and then the immediate question is like, how much time, Paul? 5 minutes, 10 minutes? Like, what's the shortest amount of time to get the best results?
Those are engineers that are asking that.
Yeah. So do you have a heuristic for recommending? I'm in the world of engineers here in Seattle.
I know that. I know. So here's the deal about culture. Let me approach it that way. Culture. One of the problems we have with our view of culture is that we tend to view it externally, that it's out there and it happens to us. Culture is the aggregate of all the different interactions between us as individuals. And so as we shape our interactions with those that we interact with day to day, and them, we can change culture. But culture has both a structured aspect. So think about personally, you have holidays, right? Those are structured events and certain traditions around those, some of which you like and others you don't, and you maybe sort of change them. But also culture has spontaneity about things that happen, and you sort of do it in the midst.
Yeah.
If you just have structure, like even about appreciation, okay, we're all going to share, something we appreciate about someone. That's all right, but if it's only that, it feels very mechanical, right, and very impersonal, really. If you go to the other end and only do things that are spontaneous, just wait for people to do it, it dies off. We need structure in our life. That's what habits are about. So I really encourage companies and organizations to incorporate appreciation and other positive actions within existing structures. It's a lot harder to create a new meeting. We're going to have an appreciation meeting or whatever. Just incorporate it into something that's already ongoing. You add it first 5 or 10 minutes. If you add it to the end, it gets booted, right? And then also let people be creative about it. I mean, we've had settings, they created their own T-shirts. We had some that they made posters. I work with a mining group that they wanted to take our symbols and they made stickers for their hard hats, And so, so it's just you let people sort of
let them self-select what is going to be the best. Create a structure. So in the team meeting, we want to take some time because we're a remote team to figure out how we're going to create some structured time to have unstructured conversations. And so that would be the conversation. What do you guys want? And so when I did this with this group, they said, you know what, we want everyone always shows up late to a meeting. That was the complaint. Everyone always shows up 5 to 10 minutes late. And so if you are the kind of person, because people who are high B on this predictive index need to be liked and they need to have that social time, because if they don't have social time at work, it feels like a prison. They're more productive when they have social time at work than when they don't have social time at work. Right. Me, I could sit at my desk and have no social time and be more productive than so how was your weekend? I don't want to do it, right? Don't make me do it. So this
this checklist, please.
Exactly. My girlfriend's like, if I'm in an office like that, I'll go out and get a coffee because I have to talk to someone or I'll be completely unproductive. Yeah. So that's how this office, which was both technical people doing financial planning, and then the other group were people who are like technical people. Guess what? They want to be alone. They just shut up, don't say anything, go away. And then there are people who are in sales and relationship management. Guess what they wanted? How are you doing? I can't do my work unless I know how you're feeling and how your weekend is. Those two things. If I don't know, then I can't do my work because I don't know what's going on with you. And if you had a bad weekend, I know that's going to affect your work. So I just need to know that. So there are two different types of people in this one firm. And what they decided was everyone was 10 minutes late all the time, and it irritated people because people would have to set up tech and whatever.
I know where you're going with this. I'm go for it.
Okay, so they'd say for the first, you tell me because you know.
I think so. The first 10 minutes, whoever wants to come and chat personally shows up, at least on time, if not early, and they've got that first time amount of time, and then when everybody's there, then they move into.
Yeah, so so people who didn't want to be there aren't annoyed with why am I here to listen to 15 minutes of chitter chatter, and right. Why does some person have their laptop plugged in and all ready to go? So it's
Hmm.
Regardless of how much time people try to get in there earlier, maybe the teleconference room was being used, so they couldn't. So there had to be this like little 10-minute window. So that's what they did. So that was, I thought, well, that's actually pretty clever.
That's not bad.
Yeah, and then the other thing that they did is they said they had even a structured sharing. So they had MERPs. Have you heard of MERPs?
Mm.
So you do a mental, emotional, recreational, physical, and spiritual. So I'd
Uh-huh.
say, okay, mentally, Paul, my mind's all over the place because I have a big client meeting. Emotionally, I'm a little bit rocky because my mom just passed, my mom just passed away and I'm trying to get all
Right.
this stuff. Recreationally, I just went, nothing. I'm not doing anything for fun. And that's part of the problem. Physical, my back hurts or like I've had this chronic, whatever, like whatever, word on my ass or whatever you need to say.
Right.
And then spiritually, like I don't even know why we're talking about that here. Whatever it is,
Right.
you do. And but what's interesting, and I do that with a group of people that I meet, and it's like a perfect way to just, taking people who don't know each other, but then people start wanting to hear that because it covers a holistic view of the whole person, and you really get to know the whole person. So that's one other thing that this group is doing. They go and they show, and people who show 15 minutes earlier do the MERPs.
Okay. All
Yeah.
right.
Okay. What are
Well,
best practices you've seen?
well,
Yeah.
I think a best practice is choice, right?
Mm-hmm.
You've got to give choice because if you force people to do that, you're going to have a bunch of pissed off, resistant people and it carries over into the work because I'm not telling you about what's going on with me physically or spiritually. I don't know you, or
Right.
that's personal. So choice, man, we just got to let people make choices. And in our training, it's like, hey, if you're not interested, that's fine. All I ask is to stand to the side. Don't try to be obstructive about
Right.
it, or don't try to fake it either, because that then undermines the perceived genuineness for everybody. And so it's fine that you don't want to do this. It's okay. I think we need
Yeah.
to
Show
give people
15
sort of,
minutes later.
yeah,
Just don't show
it's
up. That
fine.
was the choice. People just don't come in if you don't want to do
Yeah.
this. If you do want to come in, do it so that the group has some people who want it and liked it to be liked or need it to feel good. They have it, and people who don't need it don't come.
But I think what you're sharing about, the sort of the engineering, computer science, let's get this test done. It, in our new version of the book of the five languages of appreciation, amazing new research by Gallup, Towers Perrin, Boston Consulting Group,
Yeah.
Bain, uh, on the organizational and business positive effect of people feeling valued and appreciated. I cite over 50 research studies in our chapter that deals with that because bottom line, we have to remember that employees, team members, leaders are people. And people have relationships and have to communicate. And we're not just production units. We're not just problem solvers. That's part of who we are. But teams work better, organizations work better when people feel respected and valued because when you feel valued, stupid little things that happen roll off. If you don't feel valued, you're going to make an issue out of it about
Mm,
why do they get that window, and they got a newer computer or whatever it is. It's stupid little things that then sort of clog the system,
mm,
especially with negative emotionality.
mm.
And so when we help people feel valued, new research, productivity goes up 18%, profitability goes up 22% because it's not just productivity, but also less turnover, less absenteeism, following policies and procedures, less employee theft, less physical accidents on the job. So good things happen. It's not just about making people feel good. That'd be nice, but that's not the goal. The goal is to help you, one, I think, treat people as we should be treated, but things work well as a result of that.
Yeah. This is kind of another psychology 101. Duh. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
I mean, people
but
want to be
people need it.
loved, but and
Yeah,
you can't be loved at work. So the closest thing is appreciation. Like you work so hard. Yes, you're paying me money. That's appreciation. But like
I
I'm
have to
pouring
be
my heart and soul.
self-motivated, but it's nice to know that somebody values what I do occasionally.
Yeah.
And I think we're past this culturally some, but if somebody wanted to move into leadership of an organization, they got an MBA, right?
Right.
Well, I'm not thinking many courses, focused on this aspect. I mean,
Yeah,
it's
that's
on that,
absolutely true. Yeah, they
you know,
and they should have actually more. of those. I was just reading some information on leadership styles, and there's authentic leadership, there's it's transformational leadership, and the transformational leaders, which are a key component of being a great leader, you have to appreciate, recognize, not recognize, not like the you won, like you're the top sales producer, but like really see the person, like I see your strengths are in customer service and listening, and I saw you work with that client, and it was beautiful to see how artfully you did that. It's like that would keep probably someone going for like a month.
Yeah. Well, and interestingly, I mean, Gallup in their research with over 1 million people found appreciation, team members feeling appreciated, is one of the top contributors to employee engagement. And so it works. But let me give people just one really, really practical sort of thing to hang their hat on. And that is, if you see somebody successfully deal with a difficult situation, that is a golden opportunity to draw attention to that and support them. The flip side of it, if somebody deals with a difficult client or situation and nobody calls attention to it, it really becomes a negative. It's like, dude, man, I dealt with this screaming lunatic customer, calmed them down, saved the sale, yada yada, and everybody just acts like it's another day. Hey, it took some skill.
I had the same client the other day that did that. You're like,
exactly. So pay attention to those situations.
Yeah. So I think we talked about showing appreciation effectively in remote relationships, how employees, and what are virtual teams and what have you learned about them? Anything else about virtual teams?
I just think you're running into some difficult waters if there's not some kind of personal relationship. So you can have functional relationships and that's fine. Just don't expect appreciation to happen. You can recognize people for performance, but at this point, I don't think the two go together well. At least we haven't figured it out yet. Yeah,
there aren't any eminent strategies aside from the ones that we've talked about already for virtual teams. And any other things about what other things you noticed that were different from face-to-face settings, aside from the swap in the 1 and 2?
Yeah, so I just think people have to be aware of how proactive and intentional you have to be. I mean, if you wait for it to sort of up in your mind, it could go a long time. And so there's this balance. I was dealing with some engineers, and we were talking about putting reminders on your calendars, and they like to build spreadsheets, and Gantt charts on it. And it's like, well, Tuesday at 9:15, I'm going to call Brent, and you got to be careful about that you need to have a reminder, but not the same time, same way every week.
Right, not Monday each week. And it's like, oh, I've noticed you call me Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Each week you change.
On the other hand, you got to I think we have to be gracious towards people that they're trying,
Yeah, they're trying.
And yeah, they're a bit structured, but let it go.
Well, because how else can you? It's like watering the plants. I actually have a reminder in my calendar because I won't remember to water the plants. So they need love, attention, and caring, right? And for some people, if you're not oriented towards naturally feeling a situation, like you can just look at someone and go, "Wow, they need some love." TLC, but because they're not in the office, you don't know if they need TLC, so you wouldn't really know. One of the last things I'll mention is a lot of the companies now are doing pulse surveys, where they'll send, and I think my friends at Amazon said they have to enter in, like, how happy are they with their manager, how happy are they generally, like they have to enter this stuff before even like going into work. They have to take this pulse survey. And what was interesting, I'm like, do you answer honestly? Or like, yeah, why not? I'm like, well, do you feel like the repercussions are like, no, they just aggregate them all. So you don't really. Right. But what's interesting is you can see, like, if these pulse surveys are beautiful because you can see if a lot of the people on your team are feeling exhausted or feeling overworked or whatever, then you can kind of like, hey, how you doing?
I think there's pros and cons. And one is, it's an nice feedback loop, assuming, and more quick than usual. The part that I don't like and actually make fun of is in some places out there they had chief happiness officers, and I said this is going to last about maybe 6 months because if I'm in charge of somebody else's happiness, that is just a failure from the get-go, right? So the
Yes.
word happy, I sort of get it, but on the other hand, I'm in control of my own feelings. Now, whether or not I feel valued, whether or not I feel affirmed, respected, I think,
Yes.
those are, but
So, like, if you
happiness,
had a pulse survey that said, "Are you feeling valued and respected?" That would probably be better than happier because, like, your dog may have had a, whatever,
yeah,
you're just at
yeah,
the vet, you're unhappy and has
right.
nothing to do with your boss.
Right.
Yeah, I like it. So if you were to do a pulse survey, it's like, are you feeling valued? Are you feeling respected? What would
You
be other things?
listen to, are
Yes.
you feel considered? Is your input considered? I mean, the things that we know are reasonable within a workplace,
Yeah.
but, um, yeah, happiness is it's not good.
Yeah,
So, I mean,
you're
sorry.
just down on that one.
If you,
I get it
I'm
though,
not,
because
I have
personal,
a hard,
yeah, I
I've
get it.
got to
That's an
deal with
inside
my own
game.
issues. I'm not
Yeah.
going to try to make you happy. So,
Yeah, it's an inside game. So you can't necessarily, like, how can I control one person's subjective experience of happiness? Can't do it. But are you listened to? Like, that's,
I
and
think happiness also is more variable, right? More
yeah,
quickly
yeah,
throughout the.
yeah. Excellent. So I love it. Anything else to share about the remote report?
No, I mean, if people want to, give it a go, if they go to appreciationatwork.com, it's our website, and the MBA inventory is there, and then we have different versions, and it's the long distance version, and we're excited about it. Things are going well, and I'm grateful. So
Excellent. Show us the picture of the book again. Five Languages of Appreciation in the Workplace.
there we go.
Dr. Paul White. Thank you
Thanks.
so much. Thank you again. I love having you on the show.
Thanks. I enjoy it as
All
well.
right.